Greetings, noble travelers. This is Night Wanderer. Imagine a misty glen where Celts forge bronze under starlight, their lives steeped in sacred rites and tales of valor. Tonight we'll explore their daily crafts and trade, then journey into myths of bold heroes and enchanted groves. I wager a modern soul would scarcely last a day in the perils of such a life, yet their legends will leave you spellbound. Expect heroic deeds, mystic runes, and starry feasts. If you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. It truly helps. Ready? Let the Celts' tales sweep us into a deep, enchanted slumber. The moon cast a faint light over the oak groves of Iron Age Britain, where a group of druids assembled near a sturdy tree, their woolen cloaks pulled tight against the night chill. Branwen, a practical woman in her 30s, held a bronze sickle, her hands calloused from daily labor as the air carried the earthy smell of damp soil. The settlement's dogs barked in the distance, a reminder of the nearby community, and this gathering was a seasonal task, documented by later Roman observers, to harvest mistletoe for its medicinal uses and trade value. Step into this lesson, readers, and explore how this ritual reflected the daily life of Celtic tribes with the historian's eye. Carefully, Branwen led the group in a low chant, a tradition noted in early texts to mark the harvest, her voice steady as she invoked the spirits they associated with nature's bounty. The druids stood in a rough circle, their leather shoes scuffing the ground, and she raised the sickle, its blade worn from repeated use, to cut the mistletoe. The plant, a parasite on the oak, was valued for its supposed healing properties, a practice later studied by herbalists, and she aimed to keep it off the soil to preserve its efficacy. A rustle in the bushes, likely a deer, broke her focus briefly, but the task pressed on, a matter of survival rather than mysticism. Methodically, she stretched to reach the branch, the sickle slicing through the stem, and the mistletoe fell into a linen cloth held by an elder whose hands showed years of toil. The white berries spilled out, leaving a faint mark, and Branwen nodded, satisfied with the practical outcome despite her unsteady grip. The druids muttered approval, their voices rough from the cold night, and she felt a quiet pride, the moon's light offering no judgment, just illumination. The grove remained still, its trees a testament to the landscape they worked, and the ritual's purpose was clear in their coordinated effort. Precisely, the elder took the cloth, examining the mistletoe with a practiced glance, his nod indicating it met the standards for the healer's stores, a custom recorded in tribal records. Branwen relaxed her shoulders, the tension easing as the druids formed a line, their chant a simple rhythm to signal the task's end. She noticed a younger man's approving look, a shared relief, and the gathering felt less formal, more a community effort. The oak stood tall, its branches bare, and the air grew still, the work aligning with their seasonal cycle. Confidently, she struck a fire with flint and tinder, the smoke rising with a woody scent that blended with the dampness, a practical step to warm their hands. The druids gathered closer, and she poured water from a clay jug, a gesture to clean the tools, noted in archaeological findings as a hygienic practice. The flames cast faint shadows, and she thought of the village awaiting the mistletoe, its use tied to their health and trade, a reflection of their resourcefulness. The moon's light dimmed, the ritual's role evident in its simplicity. Thoroughly, the group dispersed, Branwen folding the cloth with the mistletoe, her fingers brushing the elders as she passed it over, a handover seen in tribal hierarchies. The fire died to embers, the druids heading back with steady steps, and she lingered, the cool air settling on her face. She considered the walk home, the mistletoe a small but vital gain for the winter ahead, and felt a sense of duty fulfilled. The owl's call faded, the stars offering a neutral sky, and the grove returned to its quiet. Early light touched the hills, its rays brushing the oak leaves, and Branwen walked back, the cloth under her arm, her pace even. The village awoke, smoke curling from hearths, and she delivered the mistletoe to the healer, a nod exchanged in silent understanding. The air carried a hint of wood smoke, a trace of the night's labor, and the grove receded into the morning, its role in their society quietly documented. Artemy, far off, might sense the night's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this practical heritage. Let the grove's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the mistletoe's harvest weaves a thread of resilience through your understanding. A soft glow spread across the thatched huts of a Celtic settlement as the morning sun climbed, its light catching the rhythmic motion of looms set up in an open yard. A woman named Ailey sat at her wooden frame, her fingers deftly working wool dyed in earthy tones, the air tinged with the faint smell of lanolin and dye. Around her, children played nearby, their laughter mingling with the clack of the loom, while the settlement smoke rose lazily from hearths. This was the daily craft of weaving, a skill honed to create cloaks for the chieftains, a mark of status recorded in tribal artifacts. Join this lesson, readers, and uncover how this labor shaped their society with quiet determination. Steadily, Ailey threaded the wool, her hands moving with a precision learned from years of practice, the patterns emerging as interlocking knots and spirals. The loom creaked under her weight, a sound familiar to the settlement, and she recalled how these designs, noted in later excavations, symbolized protection and lineage for the chieftains. The air grew warm, the dye's sharp scent fading into the wool's natural odor, and she felt a sense of purpose, knowing her work adorned the leaders who governed their lives. A child darted close, tugging at her skirt, and she shooed him off with a tired smile, the task anchoring her to the community. Patiently, she adjusted the warp threads, the vertical strands taut against the loom, her eyes tracing the emerging pattern, a zigzag reminiscent of river courses. The settlement buzzed with activity, the clatter of tools, a backdrop, and she thought of the chieftains who relied on these cloaks for ceremonial displays, a custom documented in early trade records. The wool scratched her fingers, a small discomfort she ignored, and she felt a flicker of pride, her craft a thread in the fabric of their hierarchy. A neighbor called out, offering a cup of water, and she nodded thanks, the moment a brief respite in her labor. Confidently, Ailey introduced a new color, a deep red from madder root, the dye staining her hands as she worked it into the weave. The loom's rhythm steadied, a pulse of the settlement's life, and she knew this hue, prized in archaeological finds, signified courage for the chieftains. The air carried the murmur of a discussion nearby, likely about a trade deal, and she listened with half an ear, her focus on the pattern's symmetry. A gust of wind lifted the wool's edge, and she pinned it down, her movements efficient, the task a practical art in their world. Thoughtfully she paused to inspect the cloak's edge, the spirals now framing a central knot, a design linked to tribal unity in historical accounts. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the yard, and she wiped sweat from her brow, the labor a testament to her skill. The children's game grew louder, a distraction she tolerated, and she considered the chieftain's approval a rare nod that validated her days. The loom's creak resumed, a steady companion, and the settlement's life flowed around her, each thread a piece of their story. Quietly she finished the hem, her fingers aching but steady, the cloak taking shape as a garment of authority. The air cooled slightly, the dye's scent mingling with the earth, and she rolled the fabric, preparing it for delivery to the chieftain's hall. A passerby complimented her work, a rare warmth in his voice, and she felt a quiet satisfaction, her effort recognized. The yard emptied as the day waned, the loom silent, and she gathered her tools, the cloak a symbol of her contribution. Dawn's light returned, touching the settlement's roofs, and Eiley rose, the finished cloak in hand, her steps firm toward the chieftain's hall. The village stirred, the sound of morning chores filling the air, and she handed over the garment, receiving a curt nod in return. The breeze carried a hint of wool, a trace of her night's work, and the yard faded into the day, its role in their history quietly fulfilled. Artemy, distant, might sense the loom's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this enduring craft. Let the thread's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the chieftain's cloak weaves a tale of resilience through your understanding. A faint mist clung to the coastal cliffs of southwestern Britain as the morning sun broke, its rays glinting off the tin ingots stacked near a wooden jetty. A man named Kadok stood watching, his weathered hands resting on a staff, the air carrying the salty tang of the sea and the sharp scent of seaweed. Behind him, the settlement buzzed with the creak of carts and the murmur of traders, a hub of activity tied to the tin trade that linked Britain to distant lands. This was no small endeavor, but a vital exchange documented by ancient records, shaping the Celtic economy. Follow this journey, readers, and discover how tin forged connections across the waves with a historian's curiosity. Eagerly, Caddock oversaw the loading of ingots onto a sturdy coracle, its hide stretched tight, the men grunting as they balanced the weight. The tin, mined from the hills of Cornwall, gleamed dully, a resource prized by Mediterranean traders for bronze, a fact noted in early Greek accounts. The air grew brisk, the sea's rhythm a constant hum, and he felt a surge of pride, knowing this trade sustained his people. A gull swooped overhead, its cry a reminder of the journey ahead, and he exchanged a nod with a sailor, the task a blend of labor and hope. Calmly he inspected a ledger of trade goods, the marks scratched on wood listing amber and salt in return for the tin, a barter system recorded in archaeological finds. The jetty rocked slightly, the tide lapping at the posts, and he thought of the Phoenicians who sailed these waters, their ships a distant memory in tribal tales. The air carried the trader's voice, haggling over quantities, and Caddock smiled faintly, the negotiation a dance he'd mastered. The coracle bobbed, ready to depart, and the settlement's life pulsed around him, tied to this exchange. Swiftly the sailors pushed off, the coracle cutting through the waves, Caddock watching from the shore, his staff planted firmly. The tin's weight steadied the boat, a commodity that fueled alliances, as noted in Roman histories of British trade. The air cooled, the mist lifting to reveal a grey horizon, and he felt a pang of unease, the sea's unpredictability a constant companion. A child ran up, asking about the journey, and he ruffled her hair, the moment grounding him in the community's future. Thoughtfully he turned to the traders on shore, their baskets filled with foreign goods, the amber glowing softly in the light. The exchange was more than metal, a cultural bridge documented in artifacts, and he counted the items, ensuring fairness. The air warmed slightly, the sun climbing, and he recalled a season when a storm sank a shipment, a loss that taught resilience. The jetty grew busy, the traders' voices rising, and he felt the weight of his role, a link in a chain stretching across the sea. Quietly, the coracle vanished into the fog, its departure a routine yet momentous event, the tin on its way to distant forges. The air settled, the seaweed scent lingering, and Caddock walked back, the ledger under his arm. He thought of the villages awaiting the goods, the trade a lifeline, and felt a quiet satisfaction. The settlement hummed with the day's start, the cliffs standing guard, and the sea's murmur faded into the distance. Dawn's light returned, touching the jetty's timbers, and Caddock stood again, the next load prepared, his steps steady. The village awoke, the sound of morning work filling the air, and he oversaw the next exchange, a nod to the sailors. The breeze carried a hint of salt, a trace of the trade's rhythm, and the coast faded into the day, its role in their history quietly affirmed. Artemy, far off, might sense the sea's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this enduring commerce. Let the tide's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the tin trade weaves a thread of connection through your understanding. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves of a lone oak on a hilltop as the morning sun rose, its rays illuminating a circle of elders seated on worn stones. A man named Cormac, his face lined with years, leaned on a gnarled staff, his voice carrying the weight of memory as the air filled with the earthy scent of moss. Around him, the settlement's youth gathered, their eyes bright with curiosity, while the distant bleat of sheep echoed from the valley. This was a tradition of oral history, a practice preserved through generations, where celestial tales guided the Celtic way of life. Dive into this chapter, readers, and trace how the stars shaped their world with a scholar's interest. Firmly, Cormac began, his words weaving a story of the Pleiades, a cluster the tribe watched for planting seasons, his tone steady from decades of repetition. The elders nodded, their hands resting on knees, and he pointed to the sky now paling with dawn, recalling how these stars, noted in later Celtic lore, marked the sowing time. The air grew crisp, the oak's shadow shifting, and he felt a quiet pride, his tales a bridge to the past. A child shifted, stifling a yawn, and he smiled, the lesson holding despite their restlessness. Slowly, he shifted to Orion, describing its rise as a signal for harvest, his voice softening with the memory of his father's teachings. The youth leaned closer, their breath visible in the cool air, and he traced the constellation's shape with a stick in the dirt, a method recorded in tribal customs. The breeze carried the scent of dew, a reminder of the land they worked, and he sensed their growing engagement, the stars a practical guide in their lives. An elder coughed, a sign of approval, and the circle tightened, the tale binding them. Thoughtfully, Cormac recounted the legend of the North Star, used for navigation by traders, his words drawing from oral traditions preserved in archaeological context. The sun climbed, casting light on their faces, and he paused, letting the silence fill with the rustle of leaves, a moment to reflect on journeys across Britain. The air warmed slightly, the oak standing tall, and he felt the weight of his role, passing knowledge to the next generation. A girl asked about a trader's tale, and he nodded, weaving it into the narrative. Quietly, he moved to the moon's phases, explaining how they timed festivals, his voice steady as the elders murmured agreement. The settlement's smoke rose in the distance, a sign of morning fires, and he noted how these cycles, documented in later studies, structured their year. The breeze picked up, cooling his face, and he sensed a shared understanding, the celestial rhythm, a cornerstone of their society. A boy traced a crescent in the dirt, mimicking him, and the lesson grew lively with their participation. Earnestly, Cormac concluded with the Milky Way, calling it the Path of Souls, a belief tied to their burial rites, his tone growing reflective. The sun brightened, the oak's leaves glinting, and he felt a pang of loss for those gone, their stories now his to carry. The air carried the faint sound of a shepherd's call, grounding the tale in their daily life, and he saw the youth's eyes widen. the stars a link to their ancestors. The circle relaxed, the lesson sinking in, and the hilltop felt alive with history. Morning light bathed the hill, its warmth touching the oak's roots, and Cormac rose, the youth scattering with quiet thanks, their minds full. The settlement hummed with the day's start, the sheep moving to pasture, and he walked down, the staff a steady companion. The breeze carried a hint of moss, a trace of the night's wisdom, and the hill stood as a silent archive, its role in their past quietly enduring. Artemy, far off, might sense the star's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this living heritage. Let the oak's wisdom guide you, readers, into a morning where the stars' lessons weave a thread of knowledge through your reflection. A soft rain pattered on the leaves of a dense grove as the morning sun emerged, its light filtering through to touch a gathering of villagers near a stone altar. A woman named Gwenhwyfar stood at the forefront, her hands clasped around a wooden staff, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and pine. Around her the community murmured, their cloaks damp from the night, while the distant call of a raven signaled the start of their task. This was a seasonal blessing ritual, a practice rooted in Iron Age traditions designed to ensure fertility and protection as noted in later Celtic studies. Enter this moment, readers, and explore how this rite reflected their practical faith with a historian's gaze. Deliberately, Gwenhwyfar raised the staff, her voice calling out a simple chant, a custom passed down to invoke the land's spirits, her tone firm yet weary. The villagers joined, their words uneven but earnest, and she sprinkled water from a clay bowl, a gesture tied to the rain's life-giving role, recorded in tribal practices. The air grew moist, the grove's shadows shifting, and she felt a quiet resolve, the ritual a duty to sustain their crops. A child sneezed, breaking the rhythm, and she smiled faintly, the moment grounding her in their shared humanity. Gracefully she moved to the altar, placing a sheaf of barley, its grains a symbol of the harvest, a tradition documented in archaeological finds. The villagers watched, their hands fidgeting with damp cloaks, and she traced a circle in the mud, a mark of protection noted in early accounts. The rain eased, the air cooling, and she sensed a connection to the land, its cycles shaping their lives. An elder nodded, his approval a silent encouragement, and the grove felt alive with their purpose. Steadily, Gwenhwyfar lit a small fire with flint, its smoke rising with a woody scent, a practical step to purify the space, observed in Celtic rituals. The villagers drew closer, their faces reflecting the flames, and she added pine needles, their aroma blending with the dampness, a custom linked to warding off illness. The air warmed slightly, the sun breaking through, and she felt a flicker of hope, the fire a beacon of their resilience. A man coughed, shifting his weight, and she pressed on, the task outweighing their discomfort. Thoughtfully she offered a prayer, her words plain but heartfelt, asking for the land's bounty, a plea recorded in oral histories. The villagers echoed her, their voices a rough harmony, and she scattered the barley over the fire, its crackle a sign of acceptance in their tradition. The air cleared, the rain stopping, and she noticed the children's wide eyes, the ritual teaching them survival. The grove stood still, its trees a silent witness, and she felt the weight of their dependence on this act. Quietly, the ritual ended, Gwenhwyfar stepping back as the villagers dispersed, their steps muffled by the wet ground. The fire died to embers, the smoke fading, and she gathered the staff, thinking of the fields awaiting their care. The air carried a hint of pine, a reminder of their effort, and she felt a quiet satisfaction. The settlement's hum grew in the distance, the grove's role in their life quietly fulfilled. Morning light spread across the valley, its warmth touching the grove's edges, and Gwenhwyfar walked back, the staff in hand, her pace steady. The village awoke, the sound of tools clinking in the air, and she joined the day's work, the ritual's purpose woven into their routine. The breeze carried a trace of smoke, a lingering mark of their labor, and the grove receded into the landscape, its history etched in their actions. Artemy, far off, might sense the grove's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint trace of this enduring practice. Let the land's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the grove's blessing weaves a thread of survival through your insight. A faint clang echoed from a low stone building as the morning sun crept over the horizon, its light seeping into the smithy where a fire already glowed. A man named David stood at the forge, his face streaked with soot, the air thick with the smell of molten metal and charred wood. Around him, apprentices moved with purpose, their leather aprons stained, while the settlement's roosters crowed faintly in the distance. This was the heart of bronze crafting, a skill central to Celtic life, documented in tools and weapons found across Britain. Step into this workshop, readers, and learn how bridles were shaped with a craftsman's resolve. Boldly, David stoked the fire, the flames leaping as he added charcoal, his hands steady from years of practice. The apprentices brought tin and copper, metals mined locally and traded widely, their mix a technique noted in archaeological studies for creating durable bronze. The air grew hot, the forge's roar filling the space, and he felt a surge of focus, the work a lifeline for their horsemen. A boy stumbled with a load, spilling a bit, and David chuckled, the mishap a common lesson in their trade. Skillfully, he poured the molten alloy into a clay mold, the liquid bronze hissing as it took the shape of a bridle bit, a design recorded in Celtic horse gear. The apprentices watched, their eyes wide, and he tapped the mold gently, a method to ensure precision as seen in excavated artifacts. The air shimmered with heat, the metal's glow reflecting on his face, and he sensed the importance of each piece, a tool for war and travel. A gust blew smoke toward him, and he waved it off, the task demanding his full attention. Patiently, David cooled the bronze in a water trough, the steam rising with a sharp scent, a step critical to hardening the metal. observed in smithing traditions. The apprentices handed him tools, their movements growing surer, and he filed the edges, a process noted for refining the bridle's fit. The air settled, the fire's heat easing, and he felt a quiet pride. The craft, a bond with his community. A dog barked outside, a distraction he ignored, the work anchoring him to the moment. Confidently, he assembled the bridle, fitting the bit with leather straps, the pieces coming together as a functional whole, a practice linked to Celtic cavalry in historical accounts. The apprentices tested the weight, their nods showing approval, and he thought of the chieftains who'd use it, their status tied to such gear. The air cooled slightly, the sun climbing higher, and he wiped sweat from his brow, the labor a testament to their ingenuity. A trader peeked in, curious, and David waved him off, the focus remaining on the task. Tirelessly, he polished the bronze, the metal gleaming under his cloth, a finish that protected it from rust, a detail found in preserved finds. The apprentices cleaned the workspace, their chatter a background to his work, and he inspected the bridle, ensuring its balance. The air carried the faint sound of the settlement waking, a rhythm he'd grown used to, and he felt a sense of completion, the craft a legacy of their skill. The fire dimmed, the day's heat fading, and the smithy grew quiet. Morning light flooded the doorway, its warmth touching the forge's stones, and David stepped out, the bridle in hand, his steps firm. The village stirred, the sound of carts rolling in the air, and he delivered the piece to the stable master, a nod exchanged. The breeze carried a hint of metal, a trace of the morning's effort, and the smithy faded into the day, its role in their history quietly affirmed. Artemi, far off, might sense the forge's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this enduring craft. Let the anvil's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the bridle's forge weaves a thread of strength through your knowledge. A gentle hum filled the air near a stream as the morning sun rose, its light dancing on the water where a group of villagers worked with willow branches. A woman named Morwen sat on a low stool, her hands deftly bending the wood, the scent of fresh sap mingling with the damp earth. Around her, others chatted softly, their voices blending with the trickle of the stream, while the settlement's smoke drifted lazily upward. This was the craft of basket weaving, a skill vital for the summer solstice celebrations noted in Celtic seasonal practices. Join this exploration, readers, and see how this labor enriched their community with a historian's insight. Smoothly, Morwen split a willow branch, her fingers guiding the knife with practiced ease, the pieces destined for sturdy baskets used to gather festival offerings. The villagers nearby nodded, their hands busy, and she recalled how these baskets, found in archaeological digs, held grains and fruits for the solstice feast. The air grew warm, the stream's coolness a contrast, and she felt a quiet satisfaction, the work a link to their traditions. A child splashed water, laughing, and she shook her head, the moment a light break in their task. Easily she wove the strands into a tight base, the pattern emerging as a simple crisscross, a design practical for carrying goods recorded in tribal crafts. The group worked in rhythm, their movements steady, and she thought of the solstice bonfires where these baskets would shine, a custom noted in historical accounts. The air carried the rustle of leaves, a natural accompaniment, and she sensed a shared purpose, the craft binding them together. An elder passed by, offering a nod, and she pressed on, the basket taking shape. Neatly, Morwen added sides, the willow bending under her touch, the height suited for holding the solstice's harvest, a practice linked to seasonal abundance. The villagers hummed a tune, their voices low, and she felt the weight of the day ahead, the baskets a practical necessity, the air brightened, the sun climbing, and she wiped her brow, the labor a testament to their skill. A man adjusted his stool, grumbling about the damp, and she smiled, the complaint a familiar note in their work. Carefully she reinforced the rim, her fingers pressing the weave tight, ensuring durability for the festival's use, a detail seen in preserved artifacts. The group paused to stretch, their joints creaking, and she thought of the chieftain inspecting the baskets, a tradition tied to communal effort. The air cooled slightly, the stream's murmur steady, and she felt a flicker of pride, the craft a reflection of their resilience. A woman offered a drink, and she accepted, the gesture a small bond among them. Tirelessly, Morwen finished the last basket, the willow's flexibility yielding to her hands, the result a sturdy vessel for the solstice rites. The villagers gathered the completed work, their faces showing quiet approval, and she considered the feast to come, a moment of unity in their year. The air carried the faint scent of sap, a mark of their effort, and she felt a sense of closure, the task aligning with their cycle. The stream flowed on, the day's light growing, and the group prepared to move. Morning rays touched the stream's edge, their warmth spreading over the woven baskets, and Morwen stood, her hands resting, the work complete. The village stirred, the sound of footsteps filling the air, and she carried the baskets to the gathering place, a nod from a neighbor, her reward. The breeze carried a hint of willow, a trace of the morning's labor, and the streamside faded into the day, its role in their history quietly documented. Artemy, far off, might sense the weave's echo in his thoughts, the scar on his cheek a faint mark of this enduring skill. Let the stream's history guide you, readers, into a morning where the basket's craft weaves a thread of community through your understanding. On a clear summer morning in a Celtic village, where the air carries the faint scent of wood smoke and freshly cut grass, I, an observer of these ancient people's ways, find myself among a group of women gathered in a clearing to craft amber necklaces for the upcoming solstice ritual. The village hums with the steady rhythm of daily life. Children chase each other near the roundhouses, and the distant clang of a smith's hammer echoes from the forge. The women work with quiet focus, their hands shaping beads from raw amber, a material prized for its warm glow and traded from distant Baltic shores. This task, rooted in tradition, prepares the tribe for the sun ritual, a celebration of the longest day, and as I watch, the simplicity of their labor reveals a deep connection to their ancestors' customs, a practice that binds them to the cycles of the earth. The clearing is a practical space, bordered by oak trees that provide shade from the midday sun. A wooden table, worn smooth by years of use, holds piles of amber fragments, some rough and cloudy, others clear as honey. The women sit on stools or woven mats, their tools, flint drills, bone needles, and sandstone polishers, scattered around them. A young woman, perhaps 20, with calloused hands, threads a bead onto a sinew cord, her movements precise from years of practice. The Celts valued amber not only for its beauty, but for its rarity, acquired through trade networks that stretched across rivers and seas, linking their damp island to far-off lands. The air is warm, filled with the faint buzz of insects, and the scene feels ordinary, yet it carries the weight of a culture that has endured for centuries. The amber itself, sourced from the resin of ancient pines, is a marvel of trade. Merchants brought it from the Baltic, bartering it for Celtic tin or furs, and its journey to this village speaks of a world more connected than one might expect. An older woman, her hair streaked with gray, polishes a bead with a piece of leather, her face lined with concentration. She has likely crafted such necklaces for decades, her skill passed down from her mother, as is the custom among these tribes. The necklaces, once complete, will be worn by the tribe's leaders during the solstice, a ritual tied to the sun's peak, when the Celts honor the harvest and pray for its bounty. The work is slow, deliberate, and the women's hands bear the marks of their craft, scratches from flint, stains from resin. Nearby, a girl of 12 or so sweeps amber dust from the table, her movements quick but careful. She pauses to examine a small bead, holding it to the light, and her curiosity hints at a future as a craftswoman. The Celts, practical in their daily lives, imbued their crafts with meaning, and amber, with its golden hue, was thought to echo the sun's fire. Historical records, sparse as they are, suggest that such rituals were central to tribal life, with the solstice marking a moment of communal unity. The women work without haste, their rhythm steady, and the air carries the faint scent of the amber's resin, a reminder of the forests from which it came. The scene is one of quiet industry, a glimpse into a world where survival and tradition are intertwined. The process of crafting is methodical. First, the amber is shaped with flint tools chipped into rough spheres. Then, a hand drill bores a hole through each bead, a task requiring patience to avoid cracking the fragile material. Finally, the beads are polished with sandstone and leather until they shine. A woman in a woven tunic ties a knot to secure a strand, her fingers deft, despite their roughness. The necklaces, simple in design, reflect the Celts' aesthetic, functional yet elegant with no need for ostentation. Archaeological finds, like those at Hallstatt, show similar amber jewelry, often buried with chieftains, suggesting its role in both ritual and status. The women's work, though repetitive, is a link to their past, a craft that has survived invasions and seasons. The sun ritual, for which these necklaces are made, is a well-documented tradition among the Celts. Caesar's accounts, though biased, describe how the tribes gathered at sacred sites to honor the sun, often with offerings of grain or woven goods. Here in this village, the ritual will likely take place on a nearby hill, where a circle of stones marks a holy site. The necklaces will adorn the chieftain and his kin, their amber catching the dawn's light as the tribe chants and dances. A middle-aged woman pauses to stretch her hands, her knuckles swollen from years of work, and I note the quiet pride in her posture. The Celts' religion, tied to the natural world, found expression in such moments, where craft and faith merged seamlessly. The clearing grows busier as the day progresses. A trader, his cart laden with hides, passes through, nodding to the women. Trade was the lifeblood of Celtic society, with amber, tin, and bronze moving across Europe in a complex web of exchange. The women pay little mind to the trader, focused on their task, but his presence underscores the broader world they inhabit. A younger woman, her tunic patched, hums a tune, perhaps a work song, though its melody is faint. Music, too, was part of Celtic life, with harps and pipes often played at rituals. The necklaces, when worn, will sway to such rhythms, their beads a silent tribute to the sun's journey. The women's labor is not without its lighter moments. The girl sweeping the table flicks a bit of amber dust at her friend, who stifles a laugh. Such small joys punctuate the work, reminding me that these were people, not merely figures in a history book. The Celts, as Tacitus noted, were a lively folk, quick to jest even in solemn moments. The necklaces, though destined for a sacred rite, are crafted with a human touch, some beads slightly misshapen, others polished to perfection. The women work as a quiet harmony, their shared purpose evident in the neat rows of finished strands laid out on the table, each a testament to their skill. As evening nears, the air cools, and the women begin to gather their tools. The elder inspects the necklaces, holding one up to catch the fading ray. Its beads glow softly, a warm contrast to the twilight's blue. The sun ritual, she knows, will be a moment of renewal for the tribe, a chance to affirm their place in a world governed by seasons. Historical evidence from sites like Stonehenge suggests that the solstice was a time of feasting and gathering, with tribes uniting to mark the year's turning. The women's work, though humble, is no less vital, a thread that weaves their village into the broader tapestry of Celtic life. The clearing empties as the women depart, Carrying baskets of finished necklaces, the girl lingers, pocketing a tiny amber chip, perhaps a keepsake of her day's work. The air grows sharp with the scent of damp grass, and the oaks stand silent, their presence a reminder of the groves sacred to the Celts. My thoughts turn to the ritual ahead, where these necklaces will shine under the solstice sun, worn by a people whose crafts endure in the earth's quiet corners. The day's labor feels both fleeting and timeless, a moment where the Celts' hands shaped not just amber, but their place in history. I, a chronicler of their ways, born of the village's summer hum, my eyes keen, my pen steady, trace the air with the scent of their craft and the faint echo of their work. I rise from the wanderer's gaze, the air alive with the scent of his curiosity and the weight of his observation, walking through clearings where crafters tread, the air pulsing with the scent of their skill and the faint murmur of their kin, record of a people's life, a legacy that shapes the day's embrace, its truth a guide through time's vast maze, a cadence that hums with the rhythm of the Celtic soul. O wanderer, thy craft is a bead in the Celt's chain, the air vibrant with the pulse of thy interest, and the faint tang of thy quest, a spirit that stirs their history. The amber guards its purpose, its glow a silent vow, its warmth a map of seasons turn, the air thick with the scent of their labor and the distant hum of their tools. The people carry their skills, their hearths a chorus of ancient lives, the grove lifts their work, its shadows a record of toil, a legacy that glows in the dusk, a truth that endures, a rhythm that pulses with the beat of history's boundless heart. As twilight settles, a quiet thought stirs in my mind, the air rich with the scent of earth and the faint hum of a village at rest, its memory a thread through the evening, weaving the amber's craft into the Celts' enduring story. Wanderer, chronicler of the summer glade, thy gaze captures the labor, thy spirit charts the past, a name that shines in the bead's quiet glow, a legacy that walks through time, a note that lingers like a breeze in the memory of the Celts' artisans. On a quiet evening in a Celtic hill fort, where the air carries the tang of peat fires and the distant bleat of sheep settling for the night, I, a passing observer of these hardy people's ways, sit among a small crowd gathered around a storyteller in the chieftain's hall. The hall, a sturdy structure of timber and thatch, is lit by the ruddy glow of a central hearth, its smoke curling upward to escape through a hole in the roof. The storyteller, an old man with a voice worn smooth by years of tales, begins the legend of Cúchulainn's birth, a story that every man, woman, and child in the tribe knows by heart. This tale, rooted in the Ulster cycle, is no mere entertainment but a cornerstone of the tribe's identity, and as I listen, the weight of history in the old man's words reveals the Celts' pride in their heroes, a bond that ties them to their past as surely as the hills anchor their home. The hall is a simple place, its walls hung with woven blankets and a few bronze shields, their surfaces dented from past skirmishes. The floor, packed earth strewn with rushes, is crowded with listeners, warriors with braided hair, women nursing infants, children sprawled on their stomachs, chins propped on hands. The storyteller sits on a low stool, his hands resting on his knees, his eyes scanning the faces before him. Cúchulainn, he begins, was born in a time of strife when the tribes of Ulster faced threats from rival clans and needed a champion. The tale, preserved through oral tradition and later recorded in medieval manuscripts like the Táin Bó Cúailnge, reflects the Celts' warrior culture where strength and loyalty were prized above all. The air is warm, heavy with the scent of burning wood, and the scene feels both intimate and timeless. The story starts with Cúchulainn's mother, Daichtine, a noble woman of the Ualaid, known for her grace and sharp wit. The storyteller recounts how she was sister to King Conchobar, a detail that grounds the tale in the political structure of ancient Ulster, where kinship tied tribes together. Daichtine, the old man says, was traveling with her retinue when they sought shelter in a strange house during a snowstorm. There she gave birth to a boy named Setanta at first, under circumstances that the tribe still debates. Some say the child's father was a mortal warrior. Others hint at a divine lineage, though the storyteller shrugs off such speculation with a wry smile. The Celts, practical in their daily lives, often wove their heroes into the fabric of their social order, and Cúchulainn's birth, whether miraculous or not, marked him as a figure of destiny. The listeners nod, their faces lit by the fire's glow, their attention unbroken. The storyteller's voice rises slightly as he describes Setanta's early years, spent in the shadow of Emain Macha, the royal seat of Ulster. The boy grew strong, outrunning his peers and wrestling older lads to the ground, his feats a source of pride for the tribe. The old man pauses to sip from a horn of ale, and I note the children's wide eyes, their imaginations fired by tales of a youth not unlike themselves. Archaeological evidence from sites like Navan Fort suggests Emain Macha was a real center of power, with earthworks and timber halls that hosted such gatherings. The Celts' oral tradition, as scholars like Barry Cunliffe note, was their history, their law, and their pride, and stories like Cúchulainn's were told to instill values of courage and loyalty. The air carries the faint scent of the listeners' woolen cloaks, damp from an earlier rain, and the hall feels like a living archive of their past. The tale shifts to the moment Setanta earned his name, Cúchulainn, the Hound of Cúchulainn. The storyteller leans forward, his hands gesturing as he recounts how the boy, invited to a feast at the Smith Cúchulainn's home, arrived late and was attacked by the smith's fierce guard dog. Setanta, barely 7, slew the beast with his bare hands, an act that stunned the gathered warriors. In atonement, he vowed to guard Cúchulainn's home himself, earning the name that would echo through the ages. The story, rooted in the Ulster cycle, reflects the Celts' respect for honor and duty, values that bound their tribes in a world of constant feuds. The old man's tone is matter-of-fact, but his eyes twinkle as he notes the boy's boldness, a trait the Celts admired. The listeners chuckle softly, and a warrior shifts his weight, his bronze arm ring glinting in the firelight. The legend's historical context is clear in the storyteller's telling. Ulster, as described in the Tyne, was a patchwork of tribes, each led by chieftains who vied for power. Cúchulainn, whether a real figure or a composite of many heroes, embodied the ideal warrior, fierce yet bound by oaths, solitary yet loyal to his kin. The Celts' society, as Roman writers like Tacitus observed, was hierarchical, with warriors and druids holding sway. The storyteller's tale, though centered on a single hero, mirrors this structure, with King Conchobar's court as the backdrop. A young girl in the crowd, her hair tangled from play, clutches a wooden toy, her face rapt as she hears of Setanta's youth. The story, I realize, is as much for her as for the warriors, a lesson in what it means to be of the tribe. The old man's voice softens as he describes Cuchulainn's training under Scathach, a warrior woman from across the sea. This detail, the storyteller notes, speaks of the Celts' far-reaching connections, with trade and travel linking their island to distant lands. Scathach taught Setanta the arts of war, spear throwing, chariot driving, and the deadly gaebolg, a weapon no foe could withstand. The training, likely exaggerated in the telling, reflects the Celts' emphasis on martial skill, evident in the bronze swords and chariots found in graves across Britain. The storyteller's hands mimic a spear's thrust, and a boy in the crowd imitates him, earning a quiet laugh from his mother. The air grows smoky, the fires crackle, a steady counterpoint to the tale, and the hall feels like a bridge between past and present. The legend's role in the tribe is evident in the listeners' faces. Cúchulainn's birth is not just a story, but a mirror of their values, strength, loyalty, and a touch of defiance. The Celts, as archaeological finds show, were a people of iron and bronze, their lives shaped by the land's harsh beauty. The storyteller's tale, passed down through generations, binds the tribe to its heroes, much as the hill fort's walls protect them from rivals. A warrior near me, his face scarred from some forgotten fight, listens with a quiet intensity, perhaps seeing himself in Cuchulainn's youth. The story, I realize, is a kind of history less concerned with facts than with the tribe's soul. The air carries the scent of ale and roasted meat, remnants of the evening's meal, and the hall feels alive with shared memory. The storyteller nears the end, his voice slowing as he recounts how Cuchulainn's birth set him on a path of glory and tragedy. The old man does not dwell on the hero's later deeds, those are tales for another night, but emphasizes his role as Ulster's shield. The Celts, he implies, need such stories to face their own challenges, from raids by neighboring tribes to the harsh winters that test their crops. The listeners sit still, their faces softened by the fire's glow, and I sense the tale's power to unite them. Historical records, like those of the Irish annals, suggest Cuchulainn's legend grew over centuries, shaped by monks who wrote down the oral tales. The old man's version, though, is raw, unpolished, a living piece of the tribe's heart. The fire dims, and the storyteller leans back, his tale complete. The listeners stir, some stretching, others murmuring softly. A child yawns, her head heavy on her mother's lap, but her eyes still shine with the story's echo. The hall grows quiet, the air cool with the night's breath seeping through the thatch. Cuchulainn's legend, I realize, is more than a hero's birth. It is the tribe's own, a story that defines their place in a world of iron and blood. The old man sips his ale, his face calm, and I feel the weight of history in his silence, a legacy that endures in the hill fort's shadow. I, a recorder of their tales, born of the hall's firelit hum, my eyes sharp, my quill steady, trace the air with the scent of their stories and the faint echo of their voices. I rise from the observer's seat, the air alive with the scent of his curiosity and the weight of his thought, walking through halls where tellers tread, the air pulsing with the scent of their lore and the faint murmur of their kin, a chronicle of a people's past, a legacy that shapes the night's embrace. Its truth a guide through time's vast maze, a cadence that hums with the rhythm of the Celtic soul. O observer, thy tale is a thread in the Celt's weave, the air vibrant with the pulse of thy interest, and the faint tang of thy quest, a spirit that stirs their history. The legend guards its purpose, its words a silent vow, their echo a map of heroes' rise, the air thick with the scent of their telling and the distant hum of their fires. The people carry their stories, their hearths a chorus of ancient lives. The hall lifts their past, its shadows a record of memory, a legacy that glows in the night, a truth that endures, a rhythm that pulses with the beat of history's boundless heart. As the embers fade, a quiet thought stirs in my mind, the air rich with the scent of smoke and the faint hum of a village at rest, its memory a thread through the night, weaving the hero's birth into the Celt's enduring story. Observer, recorder of the firelit hall, thy gaze captures the tale, thy spirit charts the past, a name that echoes in the story's quiet glow, a legacy that walks through time, a note that lingers like a whisper in the memory of the Celts. Storytellers, on a damp autumn dawn in the rolling plains of southern Britain, where the air smells of wet grass and the faint tang of chalky soil, I, a quiet observer of the Celts' enduring ways, stand at the edge of Stonehenge, its massive stones looming like silent sentinels in the morning mist. The plain stretches wide, dotted with barrows that mark the resting places of ancient chiefs, and the distant lowing of cattle carries from a nearby settlement. A small group of tribespeople, wrapped in woolen cloaks, has gathered here, their faces turned toward the stones as an elder recounts tales of gatherings long past, when their ancestors met under these same monoliths. This place, known to archaeologists as a ceremonial site from the late Neolithic to the Bronze Age, holds a deep place in the Celts' memory, and as I watch the mist curl around the stones, the weight of history in the elders' words reveals a people bound to their land and its quiet secrets. The stones themselves are rough-hewn, some towering twice the height of a man, others fallen or leaning, their surfaces pitted by centuries of wind and rain. Archaeologists, like those who excavated in the 20th century, estimate Stonehenge was built in stages, beginning around 3000 BCE, long before the Celts arrived. Yet it remained a focal point for their rituals by the Iron Age. The Sarsens quarried from nearby hills, and the smaller blue stones, hauled from distant Wales, stand in a circle that aligns with the solstices, a testament to the builder's skill. A young woman, her cloak patched with deer hide, adjusts a basket of offerings, barley cakes and dried apples, her hands red from the morning's chill. The Celts, as scholars like Miranda Green note, use such sites for communal gatherings, and Stonehenge, with its open view of the sky, was likely a place for feasts and councils. The air is heavy, the mist clinging to my cloak, and the scene feels both solemn and lived in. The elder, a wiry man with a beard streaked white, stands near the central trilithon, his voice carrying over the plain. He speaks of times when the tribes met here to mark the seasons, to settle disputes, or to honor their dead. His tale, though lacking the flourish of a bard, is rooted in the Celts' oral tradition, a practice that preserved their history before Roman scribes like Tacitus took note. The stones, he says, were raised by a people who knew the sun's path, their labor a bond with the earth. Excavations have uncovered feasting debris, pig bones, pottery, sherds, suggesting Stonehenge was a place of celebration, not just reverence. A boy no older than 10 kicks a pebble near the ditch that encircles the site, his boredom a quiet contrast to the elder's gravity. The air smells faintly of the offerings, and the mist softens the stone's edges, giving the scene a timeless quality. The gathering is small, perhaps 20 souls, a mix of warriors, farmers, and their kin. The Celts, as archaeological evidence shows, were a fragmented people, their tribes often at odds, yet places like Stonehenge drew them together. The elder recounts how, in his grandfather's time, chieftains from distant valleys met here to forge alliances, their oaths sworn under the stone's gaze. Such gatherings, supported by finds of bronze axes and jewelry in nearby barrows, hint at Stonehenge's role as a neutral ground. A woman, her hair braided with bone beads, sets her basket by a stone, her movements careful, as if the act carries memory. The Celts' rituals, practical in their core, were tied to the land's rhythms, and Stonehenge, with its solar alignment, was a calendar carved in stone. The mist swirls, the air cool against my face, and the plain feels alive with the echo of those past meetings. The elder's tale shifts to the people who built the stones, a subject of quiet debate among the tribe. Some say they were giants, others a forgotten tribe. But the old man dismisses such notions with a wave of his hand, insisting they were men like us, with sweat and sinew. Modern studies, like those by Mike Parker Pearson, suggest the builders were pastoralists who moved with the seasons, their labor at Stonehenge a collective effort spanning generations. The Celts, inheriting the site, wove it into their own traditions, using it for solstice rites and burials. A warrior, his cloak pinned with a bronze brooch, listens with a faint smile, perhaps amused by the elder's practicality. The air carries the faint scent of damp wool, and the stones stand unmoved, their presence a quiet rebuke to time's passage. The significance of Stonehenge lies in its endurance, the elder continues, his voice steady despite the chill. He speaks of winters when the tribe gathered here to watch the sun rise between the stones, a moment that marked the year's turning. Archaeological evidence, including cremated remains found in the Aubrey holes, supports the site's use for funerary rites, a practice the Celts likely continued. The young woman with the basket kneels to place an apple by a stone, her gesture simple but deliberate, a nod to the ancestors who walked this plain. The Celts, as Roman accounts describe, revered their dead, and Stonehenge, with its ancient graves, was a bridge to their memory. The mist thickens, the air heavy with moisture, and the scene feels like a pause in the tribe's long history. The gathering's purpose is practical, not ceremonial. The elder's tale is meant to remind the tribe of their shared past, especially now when rumors of Roman ships stir unease. The Celts, as historians like Barry Cunliffe note, faced increasing pressure from outsiders, and sites like Stonehenge bolstered their sense of identity. A girl, her tunic muddy from play, tugs at her mother's cloak, whispering a question about the stones. The mother shushes her, but her eyes soften, and I sense the tale's importance to the young. The elder's words, grounded in the tribe's collective memory, are a kind of glue, binding them against the uncertainties of their world. The air smells of earth, the mist a veil that blurs the horizon, and the plain feels like a stage for their history. The elder's tale draws to a close, his voice softening as he speaks of the last great gathering here, when a chieftain's son was laid to rest. The story, unadorned, reflects the Celts' stoic view of death, a cycle as natural as the seasons. Excavations have revealed rich burials near Stonehenge, with grave goods like gold ornaments and daggers, suggesting the site's importance to elite families. The warrior with the brooch shifts his weight, his hand resting on a dagger's hilt, perhaps thinking of his own legacy. The Celts' warrior culture, as seen in finds across Britain, valued honor and lineage, and Stonehenge was a place to affirm both. The mist begins to lift, the air clearer now, and the stones stand sharp against the grey sky, their silence a witness to countless such tales. The group begins to disperse. The women gathering their baskets, the men murmuring about the day's tasks. The boy who kicked the pebble now trails behind the elder, asking about the stone's weight, his curiosity undimmed. The Celts, practical in their daily lives, carried their history lightly, yet it shaped their every step. The elder's tale, though simple, is a thread in the tribe's fabric, a reminder of who they are. My own thoughts turn to the archaeologists who will, centuries hence, sift through this plain, piecing together the Celts' lives from bones and stones. The air grows warmer, the mist fading, and Stonehenge feels both ancient and immediate, a place where time folds upon itself. The plain grows quiet, the tribespeople returning to their settlement, their cloaks blending into the haze. The elder lingers, his hand brushing a stone, his face calm with the weight of his role. Stonehenge, I realize, is more than a monument. It is the tribe's memory, a place where their past lives in the present. The air carries the faint scent of the barley cakes, left as offerings, and the stones stand unmoved, their story enduring in the elder's words. This moment, brief as it is, captures the Celts' quiet strength, a people who built their lives around the land's ancient bones. I, a chronicler of their ways, born of the plain's misty dawn, my eyes keen, my pen steady, trace the air with the scent of their tales and the faint echo of their steps. I rise from the observer's place, the air alive with the scent of his curiosity and the weight of his thought. Walking through plains where tribes tread, the air pulsing with the scent of their memory and the faint murmur of their kin, a record of a people's past, a legacy that shapes the dawn's embrace, its truth a guide through time's vast maze, a cadence that hums with the rhythm of the Celtic soul. O observer, thy tale is a stone in the Celt's circle, the air vibrant with the pulse of thy interest and the faint tang of thy quest, a spirit that stirs their history. The monoliths guard their purpose, their silence a silent vow, their shadow a map of seasons turn, the air thick with the scent of their telling, and the distant hum of their plain. The people carry their stories, their hearths a chorus of ancient lives, the stones lift their past, their weight a record of memory, a legacy that stands in the mist, a truth that endures, a rhythm that pulses with the beat of history's boundless heart. As the sun rises, a quiet thought stirs in my mind, the air rich with the scent of grass and the faint hum of a plain at rest, its memory a thread through the morning, weaving the stone's tale into the Celts' enduring story. Observer, recorder of the misty plain, thy gaze captures the moment, thy spirit charts the past, a name that echoes in the stone's quiet shadow, a legacy that walks through time, a note that lingers like a breeze in the memory of the Celts. Gatherers, a bard's voice rises in a Celtic settlement, carrying the tale of Finn MacCool to a crowd of tribespeople seated on woven mats within a timber hall. I, an onlooker drawn to the Celts' deep-rooted stories, settle among them, noting the attentive faces of warriors and farmers alike. The hall, sturdy with oak beams, smells faintly of roasted barley from a recent meal, and the bard, a lean man with fingers calloused from his harp, weaves a narrative that binds the tribe to its past. Finn's legend, central to the Fenian cycle and later recorded in Irish manuscripts, speaks of leadership and loyalty, values that shaped the Celts' fragmented society. The tale, as I hear it, unfolds with a quiet force, revealing a hero who was as much a man of his time as a symbol of the tribe's enduring spirit. Finn MacCool, the bard begins, was born Fionn MacCumhail, son of a warrior chief in a land of rival clans. Raised in the hills of what is now Ireland, he grew up in a world of feuds and alliances, a reality reflected in the hill forts dotting the landscape, like those excavated at Rathcrogan. The Celts, as historians such as Barry Cunliffe describe, lived in a network of small tribes, their leaders chosen for strength and cunning. Finn, the bard notes with a slight grin, was no polished noble, but a rough-hewn youth, trained in the arts of spear and shield. The listeners, some clutching wooden cups of ale, lean forward, their eyes bright with recognition of a hero who mirrors their own rugged lives. The bard's tale shifts to Finn's rise as leader of the Fianna, a band of elite warriors who roam the land, protecting their people and serving chieftains. Unlike the structured armies of Rome, the Fianna were a fluid group, bound by oaths and skill, a system evidenced by references in early Irish texts like the Agalam na Senorach. Finn's leadership, the bard explains, came not from birthright, but from deeds, hunting game to feed his men, outwitting rival leaders in council. A woman in the crowd, her hands stained with woad dye, nods slightly, perhaps seeing in Finn the qualities of her own clan's headman. The Celts' warrior culture, as seen in finds of iron swords and chariots, valued such men, and Finn's story was a blueprint for their ideals. One episode, the bard recounts, cemented Finn's fame, his pursuit of a rival warrior who stole cattle from his tribe. The chase, spanning rivers and forests, ended in a tense standoff, resolved not by bloodshed, but by Finn's sharp words, securing peace and the return of the herd. The bard's tone carries a wry amusement, noting Finn's knack for turning foes into allies, a skill vital in a society of constant skirmishes. Archaeological evidence, such as cattle bones found in settlement middens, underscores the importance of livestock to the Celts, making Finn's feat resonate with the listeners. A youth, his tunic patched, shifts restlessly, his face alight with the thrill of the tale, a reminder of the story's pull on the young. Finn's life with the Fianna, the bard continues, was not all glory. He trained his men rigorously, teaching them to track deer through dense woods and to wield slings with deadly aim. The Celts, as Roman writers like Dio Cassius observed, were skilled hunters and fighters, their mobility a contrast to the legion's discipline. The bard describes Finn's campfires, where he shared tales of past heroes, a practice that echoes the Celts' oral tradition, their primary means of preserving history before monastic scribes. A warrior, his bronze torque glinting, listens intently, his scarred hands still, perhaps recalling his own training. The hall's warmth from the lingering fire wraps the crowd in a shared moment, the tale a thread connecting them to their ancestors. The storyteller turns to Finn's role as a judge, settling disputes among his men and their kin. He recounts a case where two warriors quarreled over a hunting ground, and Finn, with a patience rare for a warrior, divided the land fairly, earning their respect. This detail, rooted in the Fenian cycle, reflects the Celts' complex social structure, where leaders balanced might with wisdom, as seen in the legal texts of early Ireland. The bard's voice softens, his fingers brushing his harp as he speaks of Finn's fairness, a quality the tribe still seeks in its chiefs. A woman cradling a sleeping child smiles faintly, her face softened by the tale's moral, a lesson for her own kin. Finn's later years, the bard notes, brought challenges. Rival clans tested his strength, and his fianna dwindled as younger warriors rose. The Celts, as archaeological sites like Dunangus show, faced constant threats, their stone forts a testament to their resilience. Finn, though aging, led his men with the same fire, his name a rallying cry. The bard's tone carries a quiet respect as he describes Finn's loyalty to his tribe, a value etched in the bronze plaques found in Celtic graves, inscribed with oaths of service. A girl, her hair braided with leather, listens with wide eyes, her imagination caught by Finn's endurance, a spark for the tribe's future. The tale's place in the tribe is evident in the listener's stillness. Finn's deeds, though centuries old, mirror the Celts' own struggles, raids, alliances, the fight for survival. The bard's story, passed down through generations, is a kind of history less about dates than about the tribe's soul. The Fenian cycle, as scholars like Kim MacCool note, grew from oral tales told in halls like this, later written by monks who saw value in the Celts' past. The bard's hands rest on his harp, his face calm, and I sense the tale's power to unify the crowd, a reminder of their shared roots. The hall smells faintly of ale, the fire's embers glowing, and the scene feels like a living record of their culture. The bard concludes with Finn's legacy, his name sung in songs that echo across the tribes. He notes with a dry chuckle that every warrior claims a spark of Finn's spirit, a boast that keeps the hero alive. The Celts, as finds of inscribed stones suggest, honored their leaders with tales, their memory a bulwark against time. The listeners stir, some stretching, others murmuring approval. A boy sprawled on a mat mimics a spear throw, earning a quiet laugh from his father. The tale, I realize, is a mirror for the tribe, reflecting their pride in a leader who was both flawed and fierce. The hall grows quiet, the air cool with the night's breath, and the story lingers like a shadow on the walls. The crowd disperses, the warriors to their posts, the farmers to their homes. The bard packs his harp, his fingers slow with age, his role as keeper of the tribe's memory complete for tonight. Finn MacCool's tale, I reflect, is more than a hero's saga. It is the Celts' own, a story that defines their place in a world of iron and earth. The air carries the faint scent of the fire's ash, and the hall stands silent, its timbers holding the echo of the bard's voice. This moment, brief as it is, captures the Celts' quiet resilience, a people whose stories endure in the land's deep roots. I, a keeper of their chronicles, born of the hall's quiet hum, my gaze clear, my quill sure, trace the past with the scent of their tales and the faint echo of their lives. I step from the observer's place, the hall alive with the pulse of his curiosity and the weight of his reflection, moving through settlements where bards tread, their voices a record of their kin, a history that shapes the evening's calm, its truth a path through time's long arc, a rhythm that beats with the Celtic soul. O observer, thy chronicle is a knot in the Celt's cord, the hall vibrant with the pulse of thy attention and the faint edge of thy search, a spirit that stirs their past. The tale holds its purpose, its verses a quiet oath, their cadence a guide to heroes' lives, the air filled with the scent of their telling, and the distant hum of their hearths. The tribe carries its history, their fields a chorus of ancient toil, the hall bears their memory, its beams a ledger of their deeds, a legacy that stands in the quiet, a truth that lasts, a rhythm that flows with the pulse of history's endless heart. With the tale done, a thought takes root in my mind, the hall rich with the scent of barley and the faint hum of a settlement at rest, its story a thread through the night, binding Finn's deeds to the Celts' lasting record. Observer, keeper of the bard's song, thy pen holds the moment, thy mind maps the past, a name that lives in the tale's steady light, a legacy that strides through time, a whisper that carries like a breeze in the memory of the Celts' singers. A Celtic village prepares a burial, and I, a silent witness to their customs, observe the care with which the tribe honors its dead, their thoughts turning to the Isle of Avalon, a place woven into their beliefs about the soul's journey. The deceased, an elder who tended the tribe's herds, lies wrapped in a woolen shroud, his body adorned with a simple bronze brooch. The villagers, gathered in a field near a barrow, work to raise a mound of earth, their tools scraping against flinty soil. The tale of Avalon, preserved in later Arthurian legends, but rooted in earlier Celtic traditions, speaks of a distant land where souls find rest. And as I watch the burial, the tribe's quiet reverence reveals a people who faced death with pragmatism and hope, their belief in Avalon a thread tying them to their ancestors' world. Villagers heap soil over the grave, their hands steady despite the weight of loss. The barrow, one of many dotting the landscape, mirrors those excavated at sites like West Kennet, where archaeologists have found cremated remains and grave goods from the Bronze Age. The Celts, by the Iron Age, continued these practices, their burials reflecting a belief in an afterlife, as noted by scholars like Miranda Green. A young woman, her tunic patched, places a clay pot of barley near the shroud, a practical offering for the journey ahead. The tribe's view of death, shaped by centuries of living close to the land, saw it as a passage, and Avalon, though never mapped, was a symbol of that transition, its name whispered in tales told by elders. The concept of Avalon emerges from the Celts' oral tradition, later written down in medieval texts, like Geoffrey of Monmouth's works. The storyteller's absence here, replaced by the villagers' quiet work, underscores the tale's deep integration into their lives. Avalon, said to be an island beyond the western seas, was less a paradise than a place of rest, a notion grounded in the Celts' connection to water, seen in offerings found in rivers like the Thames. A man, his beard flecked with grey, smoothed the barrow surface, his face etched with concentration. The Celts' afterlife beliefs, as Roman writers like Lucan suggest, were practical, lacking the elaborate heavens of later faiths, and Avalon's simplicity suited their worldview. Grave goods are laid beside the elder, a flint knife, a bone comb, items he used in life. Archaeological finds, such as those at Maiden Castle, show the Celts buried their dead with tools and ornaments, suggesting a belief that the soul carried on in a familiar form. The tribe's labor, communal and unhurried, reflects their social structure, where death was a collective responsibility. A boy, barely old enough to wield the spade, mimics the men, his effort earnest but clumsy, drawing a faint smile from his mother. The Celts' burial rites, as evidenced by barrow clusters across Britain, strengthened tribal bonds, and Avalon, as a shared idea, gave meaning to their loss, a destination for the elder's soul. The burial nears completion, and the villagers step back, their tools resting on the ground. The barrow, freshly raised, blends with older mounds, a landscape of memory that archaeologists like Stuart Piggott have studied for clues to Celtic beliefs. Avalon, though never mentioned in ancient texts by that name, likely drew from the Celts' reverence for islands, seen in sacred sites like Anglesey, where druids once gathered. A woman, her hands dusted with earth, adjusts her bronze bracelet, her gesture absent-minded but deliberate. The Celts' view of the afterlife, as inferred from grave goods, was tied to continuity, and Avalon, whether real or imagined, was a place where the soul found its place among the ancestors. The tribe's belief in Avalon reflects their broader culture, where the natural world shaped their rituals. Rivers, bogs, and lakes, as excavation sites like La Tène reveal, were depositories for offerings, suggesting water was a gateway to another realm. The elder's soul, the tribe believes, will cross such a boundary to reach Avalon, a journey unmarked by ceremony but felt in their quiet work. A warrior, his cloak pinned with an iron brooch, stands at the barrow's edge, his face calm but thoughtful, perhaps recalling his own kin buried in similar mounds. The Celts society, as described by scholars like John Collis, was deeply communal, and Avalon's tale, though sparse, unified them in their understanding of death. Women begin to scatter wildflowers over the barrow, their movements slow and careful. The flowers, daisies and clover, are a practical choice, plucked from nearby fields, yet they carry a quiet symbolism, a nod to the earth's cycles. The Celts, as finds of pollen in graves suggest, often included plants in burials, a practice that aligns with their view of death as part of nature's rhythm. A girl, her hair loose, drops a handful of petals, her face solemn but curious, a sign of the tale's reach across generations. Avalon, as a cultural concept, was less about a specific place than a shared hope, a belief that sustained the tribe through seasons of loss, its story told in moments like this. The barrow stands complete, a modest hill against the plain's sweep. The villagers linger, their work done, their faces softened by a shared purpose. The Celts' burial practices, as documented in sites like Cúchulainn All Saints, show a people who honored their dead with care. Their graves a map of their social ties. Avalon's legend, though elusive in historical records, likely grew from these rites, its name a later addition by medieval scribes. A man, his hands rough from years of ploughing, brushes dirt from his tunic, his posture relaxed but respectful. The tribe's belief in Avalon, I realize, is a quiet strength, a way to face mortality in a world of iron and toil. The villagers' work at the barrow reflects their broader values: community, continuity, respect for the land. The Celts, as Roman accounts like those of Strabo indicate, saw death as a passage, their souls moving to a realm not unlike their own. Avalon, in this context, was a natural extension of their worldview, a place where the elder's skills as a herdsman might still serve. A youth, his sling tucked in his belt, watches the adults, his face a mix of boredom and curiosity, a reminder that these rites shape the young. The tale of Avalon, though never spoken aloud here, lives in the tribe's actions, a belief that binds them to their past and to each other. The burial's simplicity underscores the Celts' pragmatic faith. The elder's grave, like those uncovered at Wetwang Slack, contains no lavish treasures, only the essentials of his life, a reflection of a society that valued utility. Avalon, as a concept, fits this ethos, a place of rest, not splendor, reached by a soul's quiet journey. The villagers begin to depart, their tools slung over shoulders, their steps light despite the day's labor. A woman, her cloak frayed, pauses to glance at the barrow, her face unreadable but calm. The Celts' afterlife beliefs, as inferred from their burials, were a source of resilience, and Avalon, as their shared hope, endures in the earth they tread. I, a scribe of their ways, born of the field's solemn task, my sight clear, my hand steady, trace the past with the weight of their rites and the faint echo of their steps. I move from the witness's place, the field alive with the pulse of his observation and the depth of his thought, passing through villages where tribes labor, their work a ledger of their kin, a history that shapes the burial's calm, its truth a path through time's long arc, a rhythm that beats with the Celtic soul. O witness, thy record is a mound in the Celts' plain, the field vibrant with the pulse of thy attention and the faint edge of thy search, a spirit that stirs their past. The barrow holds its purpose, its earth a quiet oath, its form a guide to soul's rest, the field filled with the scent of their toil and the distant hum of their lives. The tribe carries its memory, their fields a chorus of ancient care, the mound bears their hope, its soil a ledger of their loss, a legacy that rests in the quiet, a truth that lasts, a rhythm that flows with the pulse of history's endless heart. With the burial done, a thought settles in my mind, the field rich with the scent of earth and the faint hum of a village at peace, its story a thread through the plain, binding Avalon's hope to the Celts' lasting record. Witness, scribe of the barrow's rise, thy pen holds the moment, thy mind maps the past, a name that lives in the mound's steady shadow, a legacy that strides through time, a whisper that carries like a breeze in the memory of the Celts' mourners. A Celtic hunter sharpens his flint-tipped spear in a village workshop, and I, a quiet chronicler of their ways, watch as he prepares for a journey into the forest, his thoughts shaped by tales of the sacred stag, a creature revered in the tribe's lore. The workshop, a lean-to of timber and hide, holds racks of antlers and bundles of sinew, the tools of a people who live close to the wild. The hunter, a man of 30 with a scar across his knuckles, works with steady hands, his focus reflecting the Celts' deep respect for the stag, a symbol of strength and survival. This tale, woven into their oral tradition and hinted at in artifacts like the Gundestrup cauldron, speaks of the stag's place in their world, and as I observe, the hunter's quiet preparation reveals a culture bound to the rhythms of the hunt, their reverence for the stag, a link to their ancestors' understanding of life and death. The hunter's task is practical, driven by the tribe's need for meat and hides as a winter looms. Archaeological evidence, such as deer bones found at sites like Danebury, shows that red deer were a staple of the Celtic diet, their antlers crafted into tools and ornaments. The stag, however, held a deeper meaning, its image etched on bronze plaques and pottery, suggesting a cultural significance beyond sustenance. A young apprentice, his hands stained with ash, sorts arrowheads nearby, his quick glances at the hunter betraying his eagerness to join the hunt. The Celts' relationship with the forest, as scholars like Barry Cunliffe note, was one of dependence and respect, and the stag, with its grace and power, embodied that bond. The tale of the sacred stag, though not written in ancient texts, lives in the tribe's stories, later echoed in medieval Irish tales like the Finn cycle. The hunter, as he tests his spear's balance, carries this lore in his mind, a belief that the stag's spirit guides the hunt, ensuring success if the tribe honors its sacrifice. Excavations at sites like Flag Fen reveal offerings of antlers in bogs, suggesting the Celts saw the stag as a mediator between their world and the unseen forces of nature. A woman, her basket filled with dried herbs, passes by the workshop, her nod to the hunter a sign of the community's shared reliance on his skill. The Celts' worldview, as inferred from such finds, placed animals at the heart of their survival, the stag, a quiet emblem of their respect for the wild. The hunter's preparation reflects the Celts' broader hunting practices, honed over generations. He checks his sling, a weapon used alongside spears, as seen in the leather slings found in Celtic graves. The hunt, a communal effort, required skill and patience, with trackers reading the forest signs, broken twigs, hoof prints in mud. The stag, prized for its size and elusiveness, was a challenge that tested the tribe's best hunters, its pursuit a rite of passage for young men. A boy barely tall enough to reach the workbench watches the hunter, his face alight with admiration, a hint of the tales he'll one day tell. The Celts' hunting culture, as Roman writers like Strabo describe, was a source of pride, and the stag's role in their lore strengthened their identity as a people of the forest. The stag's significance is evident in the hunter's care with his gear, each tool a link to the tribe's past. Antler picks, found at sites like Star Car, show the Celts' long history of using deer in their crafts, from weapons to needles. The sacred stag in the tribe's stories is not a god but a guide, its spirit tied to the forest's bounty. The hunter, as he wraps his spear shaft with leather, likely thinks of these tales passed down by elders who hunted the same woods. A man, his cloak pinned with a bronze clasp, stops to offer the hunter a strip of dried meat, a gesture of support for the hunt ahead. The Celts' society, as archaeological evidence suggests, was tightly knit, and the stag's pursuit was a shared endeavor, its success a cause for celebration. The hunter's journey into the forest will follow paths worn by generations, marked by cairns and notched trees. The Celts, as seen in the trackways uncovered at the Somerset levels, navigated their landscapes with care, their knowledge of the wild preserved in oral lore. The stag, with its seasonal migrations, was a calendar of sorts, its presence signaling the tribe's hunting seasons. The apprentice, now sweeping the workshop floor, hums a tune, perhaps a hunting song, its rhythm a faint echo of the tribe's traditions. The Celts' oral culture, as scholars like Nora Chadwick note, was a living archive, and the stag's tale, though simple, carried lessons of respect and survival, a story told in the hunter's steady hands. The tribe's respect for the stag extends to its use after the hunt. Hides were tanned for clothing, bones carved into tools, and antlers shaped into combs, as seen in finds at Glastonbury Lake Village. The sacred stag in the tribe's lore, demanded gratitude, its spirit honored through offerings of grain or flint, a practice hinted at in bog deposits across Britain. The hunter, as he shoulders his gear, embodies this balance of utility and reverence, his role vital to the tribe's survival. A woman, her hair braided with bone beads, watches him leave, her face calm but expectant, a sign of the community's trust in his skill. The Celts' economy, as inferred from such artifacts, relied on the hunt, and the stag's place in their stories reinforced their bond with the land. The hunter's solitary task carries the weight of the tribe's expectation. The Celts, as Roman accounts like those of Dio Cassius suggest, saw hunting as a test of manhood, its success a mark of status. The stag, with its towering antlers, was a prize that brought honor to the hunter and his kin, its tale told in halls to inspire the young. The boy, now stacking wood outside the workshop, pauses to watch the hunter's retreating figure, his imagination fired by stories of past hunts. The Celts' social structure, as evidenced by grave goods like hunting gear, valued such skills, and the stag's pursuit was a ritual that bound the tribe together, its spirit a quiet presence in their lives. The sacred stag's role in the tribe's lore is a reflection of their broader values: respect for nature, reliance on skill, gratitude for the land's gifts. The Celts, as finds of animal motifs on metalwork show, wove animals into their art and stories. The stag, a symbol of vitality, the hunter, now vanished into the forest, carries this legacy, his spear a tool of survival and tradition. The apprentice, back to his work, sorts antlers with newfound care, his hands learning the craft that sustains the tribe. The Celts' worldview, as inferred from their artifacts, saw the natural world as a partner, and the stag's tale, though unwritten, lives in their daily labor, a story of balance and endurance. The village resumes its rhythm, the workshop quiet now save for the apprentice's movements. The hunter's journey, though solitary, is the tribe's own, a pursuit that feeds their bodies and their pride. The sacred stag, I reflect, is more than a creature. It is the Celts' connection to the forest, a symbol of their resilience in a world of seasons and strife. The workshop stands ready for the hunter's return, its tools a testament to the tribe's craft. This moment, brief as it is, captures the Celts' quiet strength, a people whose stories of the stag endure in the land's deep paths. I, a recorder of their ways, born of the workshop's steady hum, my gaze sharp, my hand sure, trace the past with the weight of their craft and the faint echo of their toil. I step from the chronicler's place, the workshop alive with the pulse of his observation and the depth of his thought, moving through villages where hunters tread, their work a ledger of their kin, a history that shapes the task's calm, its truth, path through time's long arc, a rhythm that beats with the Celtic soul. O chronicler, thy record is a track in the Celts' forest, the workshop vibrant with the pulse of thy attention and the faint edge of thy search, a spirit that stirs their past. The stag holds its purpose, its form a quiet oath, its path a guide to hunters' lives, the workshop filled with the scent of their labor and the distant hum of their woods. The tribe carries its memory, their fields a chorus of ancient care, the hunt bears their hope, its tools a ledger of their skill, a legacy that walks in the quiet, a truth that lasts, a rhythm that flows with the pulse of history's endless heart. With the hunter gone, a thought takes root in my mind, the workshop rich with the scent of hide and the faint hum of a village at work, its story a thread through the craft, binding the stag's tale to the Celts' lasting record. Chronicler, recorder of the hunter's task, thy pen holds the moment, thy mind maps the past, a name that lives in the spear's steady shadow, a legacy that strides through time, a whisper that carries like a breeze in the memory of the Celts. Trackers. A Celtic scholar traces the edges of a carved stone in a windswept field, and I, a silent recorder of their traditions, observe his careful work, his fingers brushing symbols that hold the tribe's memory. The stone, half buried in the earth, bears markings, lines, and notches that speak of names and deeds long past. The scholar, a man with ink-stained hands and a worn leather satchel, studies the inscriptions, his focus reflecting the Celts' reverence for written signs, whether Ogham or early runes, as vessels of their history. This practice, evidenced in artifacts like the Ogham stones of Ireland and Britain, underscores the tribe's desire to preserve their legacy, and as I watch, the scholar's quiet scrutiny reveals a people who valued their past as fiercely as their present, their carvings a bridge across generations. The stone surface, weathered by centuries, holds a series of angled lines, likely an Ogham script, a writing system used by the Celts in the early centuries CE. Archaeological finds, such as the Ogham stones at Ballintaggart, show these inscriptions often marked graves or boundaries, naming chieftains or warriors. The scholar, kneeling beside the stone, sketches the marks in a wax tablet, his brow furrowed with concentration. The Celts, as scholars like Damien McManus note, developed Ogham as a practical tool, its simple strokes easily carved into stone or wood. A young boy, sent to fetch water for the scholar, lingers nearby, his curiosity piqued by the strange lines, a sign of the tribe's enduring interest in their own history. The inscription's purpose, though practical, carries a deeper weight. The scholar's work suggests the stone commemorates a fallen leader, its symbols spelling a name or title, a practice common in Celtic territories, as seen in the inscribed stones of Wales. The Celts, living in a world of oral tradition, began using written signs to anchor their memory, especially as Roman influence brought literacy to their elites. The scholar, adjusting his cloak against the wind, notes a faint notch that might indicate a clan's mark, his voice low as he muses on its meaning. The tribe's commitment to such records, as evidenced by finds across Britain, reflects their social structure, where lineage and honor were paramount, a legacy etched in stone. The act of carving these stones was no small feat, requiring skill with chisel and hammer. Excavations at sites like Tintagel reveal tools used for such work, alongside evidence of trade in slate and granite. The scholar, as he measures the stone's dimensions, reflects on the labor behind it, likely performed by a craftsman trained in the tribe's traditions. The Celts' use of ogam, as documented in early Irish texts like the Aurai Sept na en Achis, was deliberate, its script reserved for significant moments, burials, treaties, or claims to land. A woman, her basket filled with wool, pauses to watch the scholar, her face showing a quiet pride in the stone's presence, a reminder of the tribe's deep roots. The symbols themselves, though cryptic to the untrained eye, are a language of memory. The scholar deciphers a sequence that might name a warrior, perhaps one who fell defending the tribe's lands. A common theme in Ogam inscriptions found at sites like Cloghanecarhan. The Celts, as Roman writers like Tacitus observe, were a people of fierce loyalty, their warriors celebrated in song and stone. The scholar's tablet fills with sketches, his hand steady despite the cold, his work a continuation of the tribe's effort to preserve their past. A youth, tasked with holding the scholar's satchel, shifts his weight, his boredom tempered by the faint thrill of uncovering history, a spark that carries the tale forward. The stone's context, set in a field near a river, hints at its role in the tribe's landscape. Archaeological surveys, such as those at Dromore, show Ogam stones often marked sacred or communal sites, serving as landmarks for gatherings. The scholar, brushing dirt from the stone's base, notes its alignment with a nearby hill, perhaps a nod to the Celts' awareness of their terrain as seen in their hill forts. The tribe's use of inscriptions, as inferred from their distribution, was a way to claim space, their marks a declaration of identity in a world of rival clans. A man, his staff carved with knots, approaches to offer the scholar bread, his gesture a sign of the community's support for such work. The scholar's study of the stone reflects the Celts' broader engagement with their history. The tribe, as evidenced by inscribed artifacts like the Battersea Shield, valued symbols as carriers of meaning, their art and writing intertwined. The Ogam script, with its angular precision, was a tool of the learned druids, bards, or figures like the scholar, who served as the tribe's memory keepers. The boy, now splashing water from his bucket, mimics the stone's lines in the mud, his play a faint echo of the tribe's tradition. The Celts' literacy, though limited compared to Rome's, was a mark of their sophistication, as noted by scholars like John Coke, and the stone's riddle is a testament to their craft. The inscription's survival, despite time's erosion, speaks to the Celts' enduring legacy. The scholar, packing his tablet, reflects on other stones he has seen, each telling a fragment of the tribe's story, a pattern confirmed by finds across Ireland and Britain. The Celts, facing pressures from Roman expansion, use such markers to assert their identity, their script a quiet defiance. The woman with the wool basket returns, her eyes lingering on the stone, her presence a link to the women who mourned the warrior it names. The tribe's commitment to memory, as seen in their inscribed stones, was a bulwark against oblivion, their carvings a record of lives lived in iron and earth. The stone's riddle, though partly solved, holds gaps the scholar cannot fill. The Celts' oral tradition, as hinted in early texts like the Lebor Gabala Eren, often outstripped their written records, leaving names and deeds half-remembered. The scholar, slinging his satchel over his shoulder, accepts the uncertainty, his work a piece of a larger puzzle, much like the archaeological efforts at sites like Gurness. The youth, now free of his task, kicks a pebble, his energy a contrast to the stone's stillness, a reminder of the tribe's living history. The Celts' inscriptions, I realize, are a dialogue with time, their symbols a way to speak to those yet to come. The field grows still, the scholar's work complete for now, the stone standing as it has for centuries. The tribe's tale of the sacred marks, though unwritten, lives in their care for such relics, a practice that binds them to their past. The man with the carved staff walks away, his step slow, his role as witness to the scholar's task, a quiet honor. The riddle of the stones, I reflect, is the Celts' own, a people who carved their names into the earth, their memory enduring in the lines they left behind. The field holds the stone's quiet weight, a testament to the tribe's resolve. I, a keeper of their records, born of the field's silent task, my sight clear, my hand firm, trace the past with the weight of their marks and the faint echo of their lives. I move from the recorder's place, the field alive with the pulse of his observation and the depth of his thought, passing through lands where scholars tread, their work a ledger of their kin, a history that shapes the stone's calm, its truth a path, through time's long arc, a rhythm that beats with the Celtic soul. O recorder, thy chronicle is a line in the Celts' script, the field vibrant with the pulse of thy attention and the faint edge of thy search, a spirit that stirs their past. The stone holds its purpose, its marks a quiet oath, their form a guide to name's rest, the field filled with the scent of their labor and the distant hum of their hills. The tribe carries its memory, their lands a chorus of ancient care. The stone bears their hope, its lines a ledger of their lives, a legacy that stands in the quiet, a truth that lasts, a rhythm that flows with the pulse of history's endless heart. With the scholar gone, a thought settles in my mind, the field rich with the scent of earth and the faint hum of a land at rest, its story a thread through the stone, binding the riddle's tale to the Celt's lasting record. Recorder, keeper of the carved lines, thy pen holds the moment, thy mind maps the past, a name that lives in the stone's steady shadow, a legacy that strides through time, a whisper that carries like a breeze in the memory of the Celts' scribes. Villagers stack wooden tables in a Celtic settlement's open field, and I, a quiet witness to their customs, observe their preparations for a feast, honoring Lugh, a figure revered for his skill and leadership. The tables, rough-hewn from oak, groan under the weight of clay pots filled with barley stew and roasted game. The tribe, bustling with purpose, sets out horn cups and woven baskets, their efforts reflecting the Celts' deep respect for Lugh, a deity linked to harvest and unity. This tradition, echoed in later Irish texts like the calmingstory and supported by archaeological evidence of feasting sites, underscores the tribe's communal spirit, and as I watch, the villagers' shared labor reveals a people who celebrated their survival with gratitude, their feast a testament to their enduring bonds. Tables fill with food, the villagers' hands swift as they arrange offerings of bread and apples. Archaeological discoveries, such as feasting debris at sites like Navan Fort, show that the Celts held large gatherings, often tied to seasonal cycles, with Lugh's name invoked in later traditions like Lugnasad. The festival, likely rooted in Iron Age practices, marked the harvest start, a time of plenty before winter's lean months. A young woman, her apron dusted with flour, adjusts a pot, her face flushed from the heat of cooking fires. The Celts' social structure, as scholars like Barry Cunliffe describe, relied on such events to strengthen ties between clans, and Lugh, as a symbol of skill and abundance, was a fitting patron. The feast's preparations reflect the tribe's practical devotion. A man, his tunic patched, carves a haunch of venison, his knife honed to a fine edge, a skill honed through years of hunting. The Celts, as evidenced by butchered bones found at sites like Danebury, were adept at preparing game, their feasts a display of their land's bounty. Lugh, known in lore as a master of crafts and war, embodied the versatility the tribe prized. His name preserved in place names like Lugdunum, noted by Roman writers like Strabo. A child clutching a wooden spoon darts between tables, her laughter a spark of the joy these gatherings brought. The tribe's reverence for Lugh, though unwritten in their time, lives in their shared work, a celebration of survival and skill. Villagers arrange benches around the tables, their movements practiced from years of such feasts. Excavations at sites like Emain Macha reveal large enclosures used for communal events, with pottery sherds and animal bones hinting at lavish meals. The Celts, living in a world of scattered tribes, used these gatherings to forge alliances, settle disputes, or honor their leaders, as seen in the rich grave goods of chieftains' burials. A warrior, his bronze arm ring glinting, helps carry a barrel of mead, his strength a quiet boast among his kin. The feast for Lugh, as inferred from later texts, was a moment of unity, its patron a figure who bridged the tribe's daily toil with their aspirations for prosperity. The tribe's preparations include music, a vital part of their feasts. A bard, his harp resting nearby, tunes its strings, his fingers deft despite their calluses. The Celts, as Roman accounts like those of Diodorus Siculus note, were fond of music, with harps and pipes accompanying their gatherings. Lugh, in later myths, was said to be a skilled musician, his talents a model for the tribe's bards who preserved history through song. A woman, her hair braided with leather cords, sets out clay cups, her face softening as she hums a tune, perhaps one sung for Lugh. The feast's music, as evidenced by instrument fragments found at sites like Broiter, was a thread that wove the tribe together, its melodies a living record of their culture. The villagers' work nears completion, the field now a patchwork of tables and benches. The Celts' feasting culture, as seen in the large hearths uncovered at Gossage All Saints, required careful planning, with entire settlements contributing food and labor. Lugh's feast, though rooted in oral tradition, likely drew from these practices, its significance growing as the tribe faced Roman pressures, as noted by historians like John Collis. A youth, his sling tucked in his belt, carries a basket of apples, his stride proud despite his small frame. The tribe's devotion to Lugh, I realize, is less about worship than community, their feast a moment to affirm their shared strength in a world of iron and earth. The feast's setting, an open field near the settlement's palisade, mirrors the Celts' connection to their landscape. Archaeological surveys, such as those at Maiden Castle, show settlements designed for defense and gathering, their open spaces ideal for communal events. Lugh, as a figure of light and harvest, suited these outdoor feasts, his name a rallying cry for the tribe's resilience, as seen in the continuity of Lughnasadh in later Irish culture. A man, his staff carved with spirals, oversees the placement of torches, his authority quiet but clear. The Celts' social hierarchy, as inferred from grave goods like bronze mirrors, valued leaders who fostered unity, and Lugh's feast was a stage for such bonds. The villagers' efforts reflect their broader values: hospitality, gratitude, collective survival. The Celts, as Roman writers like Tacitus observe, were generous hosts, their feasts a display of wealth and goodwill. Lugh, in lore, was a champion of fairness, his feasts in myth a model for the tribe's gatherings, where disputes were settled over mead. A woman, her cloak pinned with a bone brooch, arranges loaves of bread, her hands steady from years of baking. The tribe's feasting tradition, as evidenced by large pottery vessels found at sites like Hengistbury Head, was a cornerstone of their identity, and Lugh's name, though unwritten in their time, lives in their shared bounty. The feast's purpose, beyond celebration, is to renew the tribe's ties. The Celts, as archaeological evidence of trade goods like amphorae suggests, were connected to wider networks, their feasts a chance to exchange news and goods. Lugh, as a figure of craft and eloquence, embodied the skills needed for such exchanges, his lore preserved in the songs of bards, like the one tuning his harp. A girl, her apron stained with berry juice, helps stack firewood, her face serious but bright, a sign of the feast's reach across generations. The tribe's commitment to Lugh, I reflect, is a commitment to each other. Their feast, a ritual of survival and hope in a world of seasons and strife. The field stands ready, the tables laden, the villagers pausing to survey their work. The Celts' feasting sites, like those at Tara, show a people who built their lives around such moments, their gatherings a bulwark against division. Lug's feast, though rooted in oral tradition, carries the weight of their history, its patron a symbol of the tribe's enduring spirit. The bard, now ready to play, tests a chord, its sound a faint promise of the songs to come. The feast for Lugh, I realize, is the Celts' own, a celebration of their strength, their land, their kin, its memory a thread that binds them to their past. I, a scribe of their ways, born of the field's busy hum, my sight clear, my hand firm, trace the past with the weight of their feast and the faint echo of their lives. I step from the witness's place, the field alive with the pulse of his observation and the depth of his thought, moving through settlements where tribes gather, their work a ledger of their kin, a history that shapes the feast's calm, its truth a path through time's long arc, a rhythm that beats with the Celtic soul. O witness, thy record is a cup in the Celts' feast, the field vibrant with the pulse of thy attention and the faint edge of thy search, a spirit that stirs their past. The tables hold their purpose, their bounty a quiet oath, their form a guide to kin's rest, the field filled with the scent of their labor and the distant hum of their hills. The tribe carries its memory, their lands a chorus of ancient care, the feast bears their hope, its fires a ledger of their lives, a legacy that stands in the quiet, a truth that lasts, a rhythm that flows with the pulse of history's endless heart. With the feast prepared, a thought settles in my mind, the field rich with the scent of stew and the faint hum of a tribe at rest, its story a thread through the tables, binding Lugh's tale to the Celts' lasting record. Witness, scribe of the laden field, thy pen holds the moment, thy mind maps the past, a name that lives in the feast's steady shadow, a legacy that strides through time, a whisper that carries like a breeze in the memory of the Celts' feasters.